Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Radha Madhava Sri Radhe Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for everyone come and join morning Bhagavatam reading. So today we are going to read Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 2 Chapter 1 Text 21 and okay. So we'll start with the prayers. Om Agnana Timirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणि निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणि। So we'll read some verses from the Bhagavatam itself, glorifying Bhagavatam. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। शुश्रूषो श्रद्धधानस्य वासुदेव कथारुचिः स्यान्महत्सेवया विप्रा पुण्यतीर्थानि सेवनात्। शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन हृदयन्तस्तो हि अभद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्सताम्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। तथा रजस्तमो भाव कामलोभादयश्च ये चेतयेतैरनविद्धं स्थितं सत्त्वे प्रसीदति। एवं प्रसन्नमनसो भगवद्भक्तियोगतः भगवत्तत्त्वविज्ञानं मुक्तसङ्गस्य जायते। भिद्यते हृदयग्रन्थिश्चिद्यन्ते सर्वसंशया क्षीयन्ते चास्य कर्माणि दृष्ट एवात्मैश्वरे। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Again, welcome all the devotees. I need all your blessings so that I can speak something meaningful from this verse of Bhagavatam. Today's we're reading from the text, Canto 2, Chapter 1, Text 21. यस्यां सन्धर्यमानायां योगिनो भक्तिलक्षणा आसु सम्पद्यते योगा आश्रयं भद्रमीक्षिता। यस्यां सन्धार्यमानायां योगिनो भक्तिलक्षणा आसु सम्पद्यते योगा आश्रयं भद्रमीक्षिता। यस्यां सन्धार्यमानायां योगिनो भक्तिलक्षणा आसु सम्पद्यते योगा आश्रयं भद्रमीक्षिता। Synonyms: Yasyam, by such systematic remembrance, Sandharyamanayam, and thus being fixed in the habit of Yogina, the mystics, Bhakti Lakshana, being practiced to the devotional system, Asu, very soon, Sampadyate, attains success, Yoga, connection by devotional service, Ashrayam, under the shelter of Bhadram, the all-good, Ikshita, which seeing that. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada Ki Jai. O king, by this system of remembrance and by being fixed in the habit of seeing the all good personal conception of the Lord, one can very soon attain devotional service to the Lord under his direct shelter. One more time I will read. O king, by this system of remembrance and by being fixed in the habit of seeing all good personal conception of the Lord, one can very soon attain devotional service to the Lord under his direct shelter. Purport. Success of mystic performances is achieved only by the help of the devotional attitude. Pantheism, or the system of feeling the presence of Almighty everywhere, is a sort of training of the mind to become accustomed to the devotional conception. And it is this devotional attitude of the mystic that makes possible the successful termination of such mystic attempts. One is not, however, elevated to such a successful status without a tinge of mixture in devotional service. The devotional atmosphere created by pantheistic vision develops into devotional service in later days. And that is the only benefit for the impersonalist. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, text 5, that the impersonal way of self-realization is more troublesome because it reaches the goal in an indirect way. Although the impersonalist also becomes obsessed with the personal feature of the Lord after a long time. This text is almost concluding the present section, what Sukadeva Goswami is speaking about the Ashtanga Yoga. And just to bring the context to this, so when Sukadeva Goswami is actually responding in the second canto starts with that Sukadeva Goswami responding to the question of Parishit Maharaj that he raised in the previous canto, at the end of the previous canto, that what is the duty of a man who is about to die? What is that he should do and what is that he should not do? So he is responding to that now. In that, to start with, he immediately gives the punchline, saying that Bhakti is the superior, and he glorifies Bhakti, and he says chanting and hearing and remembering about the Lord is the best process. And in fact, the word specifically uses in the previous text was Harinamanu Kirtanam. That is the best, and that is the best recommended. And in fact, he presents it as if it is a goal of life. So that's what goal of life means. When we have perfected the process, so this is what we will be doing. We will be chanting, hearing, remembering all the time, right? So he presents it that way, and he immediately changes the tone, saying that in order to reach to the level of bhakti, always chanting and remembering the Lord, we need to go through a purificatory process, right? And that purificative process, the one he starts with is Ashtanga Yoga. And it's very surprising, and we will discuss a little bit about it, why he is introducing Ashtanga Yoga, right? And instead of any other method, particularly like our own theology, the way Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced us, our Acharyas, and Srila Prabhupada particularly introduced us our Brahma Madhya Gaudiya theology. It's not our theology to practice Ashtanga Yoga. Our practices are also Bhakti Yoga, but Bhakti Yoga in a practice stage, right? So, but anyhow, he starts with that Ashtanga Yoga system, explaining. And one of the reason devotees explain that because when Parishit Maharaj was about to leave the scene, this world, there's so many sages from all over the world assembled there, right? So, and even in those days, it's not that everybody was practicing the same method of yoga systems. Many people were practicing different systems, and Ashtanga Yoga was obviously one of the system, and it was authorized system, and to address everyone. So that is why Sukadeva Goswami is introducing Ashtanga Yoga. In fact, if we go a little forward in his conversation, he introduces Ashtanga Yoga meditation on the uh, Virat Rupa, universal form, and Ashtanga Yoga meditation on the Paramatma, and later on he introduces the Bhakti Yoga also. And in fact, he concludes that Bhakti Yoga is the way to go. That is his opinion, Sukadeva Goswami's opinion. But all this comes in the later parts of the canto. But now he is introducing the Ashtanga Yoga. So now we will move little bit onto the purport. Prabhupada is saying here, success of mystic performances is achieved only by the help of devotional attitude. Wow, this is a very strong statement, obviously coming from the verse itself. The word here, the Sanskrit word is Bhakti Lakshana. Bhakti Lakshana means the qualities of Bhakti, that is the devotional attitude. And the verse itself is saying that by this system of remembrance. So the system of remembrance here, Sukadeva Goswami is talking about Ashtanga Yoga, and Prabhupada is quoting it as mystic performances. That is the yoga process, Ashtanga Yoga process. But how the success comes for this process? It is achieved only by the help of devotional attitude. Unless there is a Bhakti Lakshana, one will not be able to attain the perfection in the process of Ashtanga Yoga. Even though the process is a mechanical process of Ashtanga Yoga, but still there is a devotional attitude. The tinge of devotion must be there. Otherwise, there is no perfection is achieved. So that is what Sukadeva Goswami is presenting it here. And so we'll little bit here. Ashtanga Yoga, obviously, other devotees know there are 8 processes, but I just repeat: Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. So these are 8 gradual steps in the Ashtanga Yoga system, where the detachment progressively develops, and at the level of pranayama, one starts meditating, one starts uttering the word Om in order to control the mind. In fact, this is described in the text 17. Right now we are in text 21. And in text 18, so if you further progress in the controlling process of the mind by chanting the Om, so then we will lead to a place where withdrawing the mind from the sense activities. So that's what the help we get from chanting the Om, controlling the mind. We'll be able to control the senses as well by withdrawing the mind from the senses. And then dharana process. So this is the key, because this dharana comes many times in later verses in this chapter, fixing the mind with intelligence on the form of the Lord. Right? So when we are able to remove the mind from the sense objects, and we have to fix that mind on a positive aspect. So that positive aspect is form of the Lord. So this process is called dharana. Right? And this dharana, when it matures for a longer time, I think it is called dhyana. Right? And in the dharana process, what is the object of meditation? That is the key. So of course, in the later parts of the verses, not even in 21, in fact, Parikshit Maharaj asked this question, saying that how is that I should control my mind, that is withdraw my mind from the senses and focus on the Lord. How is that possible? What is the object of the meditation? So the Sanskrit word that is dharanashraya. What is the dharanashraya? What is the object of meditation? So then Sukadeva Goswami explains two levels of yogis. The beginning level of Ashtanga yogis who are attached to matter. For them, the dharanashraya or the object of meditation is a universal form, Virat Rupa. For the yogis who are in the perfected stage, advanced stage, Ashtanga yogis who are perfected stage or advanced stage, for them the object of meditation is Paramatma. So these are all will be in detail explained in the later parts of the world. But I'm bringing these two aspects because Prabhupada in his purport of text 21 as well as in text 20, he doesn't give much indication of Dharanashrayas as the Paramatma. He actually focuses on universal form, right? Because the immediate answer that Sukadeva Goswami is going to present is on the universal form. So Prabhupada already, because he's usually that he does whatever the next verses which are going to come up, he actually brings that summary and actually puts in the current verses itself, whichever is going to about to come. In fact, we can see that in many places. So that's what I think he is doing here. In text 20 as well as 21, that we will know by reading the next sentence. We will move on. Pantheism, or the system of feeling the presence of Almighty everywhere, is a sort of training of the mind to become accustomed to the devotional conception. And it is this devotional attitude of the mystic that makes possible the successful termination of mystic attempts. So we can say, wait, where is this pantheism suddenly coming up, right? So Sukadeva Goswami is not mentioning yet what is the Dharanashraya, or what is the goal of, what is the object of meditation in the Dharana process. But Prabhupada is already bringing pantheism. Pantheism, if you see the literary meaning, it is something like, let me check, it is 1 minute. Yeah, pantheism is a doctrine that identifies God with each object in the universe. Yeah, and Prabhupada saying that feeling the presence of Almighty everywhere. So that is the philosophy of pantheism. So that means people who are attached to matter very much, and if they don't have any other higher concept, so they can see the wondrous nature, splendorous nature, and they can appreciate the nature, saying that, wow, what powerful God is. It's still a hazy or blurry picture of the Lord. It's not clear, but they're just appreciating the almighty nature. And they're not very clear what is the form of the Lord, or is there a really personality behind the Lord. They're not very clear, but they're simply appreciating the glory of the nature. Like when they were see the glorious events or the beautiful events acting in the universe, or like the nature itself is so beautiful. So when they have the experience of all this, they will try to appreciate the Lord. And so that is why in this so that is why we can say that Prabhupada is bringing the word pantheism in order to mention the universal form. So meditation on the universal form, because meditation on the universal form is very similar to this. So the universe itself is in a way body of the Lord. So we can actually see everywhere the Lord by seeing the matter, right? When we see the planets, when we see the earth, or when we even, in fact, the similar concept is presented in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna asks, how can I see you, Krishna, in this world, material world. Then Krishna explains the opulences, and in those opulences, wherever the greatest of the opulence, the present in that quality of the matter. So Krishna says, "I am there. You can see that as me," right? So, so that way, by meditating or during the dharana process, when we focus our mind on the universal form, on the Lord, we will be able to control the mind. Control the mind from what? Control the mind from mode of passion and ignorance. In fact, that is the controlling the mind from ignorance and passion. That is the that is what mentioned in the previous text. So, and then we will be able to move further into the advanced stages. So that further advanced stages happens in the dhyana. The stage of dhyana, but that happens only through the process of by bhakti yoga. Bhakti, tinge of the bhakti should be there. So that is what Prabhupada is telling here. Pantheism, or the system of feeling the presence of Almighty everywhere. So this is focusing on mind on the universal form, is a sort of training of the mind to become accustomed to the devotional conception. Right? So because when we appreciate the nature, in a way we are appreciating the Lord. So we are glorifying the Lord. Right? So there is a tinge of bhakti there. So this devotional attitude, and it is this devotional attitude of the mystic that makes possible the successful termination of the mystic attempts. Like I was telling in the before, this text is the conclusion of the Ashtanga yoga process that Sukadeva Goswami is explaining, and he is bringing up to the perfection of the stage, and he's telling that the perfection only happens through tinge of bhakti. Right? And Prabhupada here, he puts the same sentence in a negative way. One is not, however, elevated to such a successful status. So the successful status of Ashtanga yogi here. So Prabhupada is saying, Ashtanga yogi will not become perfect without the tinge of mixture in devotional service. So the first sentence here, it is a positive way of saying that bhakti is required for becoming perfect, and here he is saying without bhakti one is not going to become perfect in Ashtanga yoga system. So yeah, and next we'll move on. The devotional atmosphere created by pantheistic vision, that is meditation on the universal form, develops into devotional service in later days, and that is the only benefit for the impersonalist. So even though they become perfect in their Ashtanga yoga system, some of the yogis become devotees eventually. And how do they become devotees eventually? I think Prabhupada answers that in Bhagavad Gita 12.5. Some devotional aspect they already developed while meditating on the universal form, because there is some personal aspect and there is a glorification of the Lord is present while meditating on the universal form. But the Prabhupada's answer is they will meet the devotees. Eventually, after practicing many years, they will be able to come to the stage where they will meet the devotees and they will start appreciating the devotional process and they will take up devotional service. Okay. So that is how their devotional service grows. So that is what it says here. The devotional atmosphere created by pantheistic vision, that is the starting point, but then develops into devotional service in later days, and that is the only benefit of the impersonalists. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita text 12.5 that the impersonal way of self-realization is more troublesome because it reaches the goal in indirect way. although the impersonalist also becomes obsessed with the personal feature of the Lord after a long time. So again, this is becoming clear because Sukadeva Goswami wanted to tell Bhakti is the best, and uh, worshipping the personal feature is the best, right? But he is starting with Ashtanga Yoga, and here he is saying Bhakti is required to even perfect Ashtanga Yoga also. And Prabhupada is saying even further, he is further going that even yogis become devotees eventually, even though indirectly, right? And yogis also eventually get attached to the personal feature of the Lord. So, in fact, Prabhupada says obsessed. Obsessed is like a extreme form of attachment, I think. Obsessed with the personal form of the Lord after a long time. So they also become attached to the Lord. But the text 12.5 Bhagavad Gita says that the process itself is not so easy. It's a very indirect and it's very long. Maybe I should read 12.5. It should not take long time. We will just recap what Bhagavad Gita 12.5 says. Kleshodhika tarastesham avyakta shakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavabdir avapyate. Translation: for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. Okay, I will read quickly the purport also. The group of transcendentalists who follow the path of inconceivable, unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord are called Gnana Yogis, and persons who are in full Krishna consciousness engaged in devotional service to the Lord are called Bhakti Yogis. Now, here the difference between Gnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga is definitely expressed. The process of Gnana Yoga, although ultimately bringing one to the same goal, that is notable. So ultimately, it's the same goal, is very troublesome. Whereas the path of Bhakti Yoga, the process of being in the direct service of the Supreme Personality Godhead, is easier and is natural for the embodied soul. The individual soul is embodied since time immemorial. It is very difficult for him to simply theoretically understand that he is not the body. Therefore, the Bhakti Yoga accepts the deity of Krishna as worshipable because there is some bodily concept fixed in the mind which can thus be applied. Of course, worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his form within the temple is not idol worship. There is evidence in the Vedic literature that worship may be saguna or nirguna of the Supreme possessing or not possessing attributes. Worshipping of the deity in the temple is saguna worship, for the Lord is represented by material qualities. But the form of the Lord, though represented by material qualities such as stone, wood, or oil paint, is not actually material. That is the absolute nature of the Supreme Lord. So in this paragraph, Prabhupada is focusing on the Bhakti itself and why it is so natural. Because we are in bodily concept, and deity also in a way represents the body, but Prabhupada is giving a caution that our body and deity's body is not same. Even though it is a saguna worship, it is totally transcendental, right? Now, in the second paragraph, a crude example may be given here. We may find some mailboxes on the street. As if we post our letters in those boxes, they will naturally go to their destination without difficulty. But any old box or an imitation which may find somewhere but which is not authorized by the post office will not do the work. Similarly, God has an authorized representation in the deity form, which is called Archa Vigraha. The Archa Vigraha is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. God will accept service through that form. The Lord is omnipotent, all-powerful. Therefore, by his incarnation as Archa Vigraha, he can accept the service of the devotee just to make it convenient for the man in conditioned life. Okay. So still further, Prabhupada is explaining how Bhakti Yoga, worshipping the Lord through in the form of Archa Vigraha is bona fide, and it's easy, and it's authorized, and it's not material. So now probably he starts comparing with the Gnana Yoga. So far, a devotee, there is no difficulty in approaching Supreme immediately and directly. But those who are following the impersonal way to spiritual realization, the path is difficult. They have to understand the unmanifested representation of the Supreme through such Vedic literatures as Upanishads, and they have to learn the language, understand the non-perceptual feelings, and realize all these processes. This is not very easy for a common man. A person in Krishna consciousness engaged in devotional service simply by the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, simply by offering regulative obeisances unto the deity, simply by hearing the glories of the Lord, and simply by eating the remnants of foodstuffs offered to the Lord, realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead very easily. There is no doubt that the impersonalists are unnecessarily taking a troublesome path with the risk of not realizing the absolute truth at the ultimate end. But the personalist, without any risk, trouble, or difficulty, approaches the Supreme Personality directly. A similar passage appears in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is stated there that if one ultimately has to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this surrendering process is called Bhakti, but instead takes the trouble to understand what is Brahman and what is not Brahman and spends his whole life in that way, the result is simply troublesome. Therefore, it is advised here that one should not take up this troublesome path of self-realization because there is uncertainty in the ultimate result. A living entity is essentially an individual soul, and if he wants to merge in the spiritual whole, he may accomplish the realization of the eternal and knowledgeable aspects of his original nature, but blissful portion is not realized. By the grace of some devotees, such transcendentalists, highly learned in the process of Jnana Yoga, may come to the point of Bhakti Yoga or devotional service. So this is where Prabhupada is explaining. Even Gnana Yogis also come to Bhakti Yoga by the mercy of devotees at some later point of time, because they miss the aspect of Ananda. At that time, the long practice in impersonal also becomes a source of trouble because he cannot give up the idea. Therefore, an embodied soul is always in difficulty with the unmanifest, both at the time of practice and at the time of realization. Every living soul is partially independent, and one should know for certain that this unmanifested realization is against the nature of his spiritual blissful self. One should not take up this process. For every individual living entity, the process of Krishna consciousness, which entails full engagement in devotional service, is the best way. If one wants to ignore the devotional service, there is the danger of turning to atheism. Thus, the process of centering attention on the unmanifested, the inconceivable, which is beyond the approach of the senses, as already expressed in this verse, should never be encouraged at any time, especially in this age. It is not advised by Lord Krishna. So Prabhupada is really clear. He is like giving a fist, saying that no, to any other process than bhakti, because those processes are indirect. While practicing itself, it's very difficult, as we know from the Jnana Yoga or even the Ashtanga Yoga, like Sukadeva Goswami mentioning here. It needs a lot of qualifications from the personal, from the Jiva perspective. Otherwise, it's very difficult to practice Ashtanga Yoga. And even then, we need a tinge of bhakti to progress. And even after reaching their perfection, they want to go from there to personal aspect. So still a help of a devotee is required, and they have to practice Bhakti Yoga. So then why we have to take all these troubles? Some Prabhupada is saying, don't worry, practice Bhakti Yoga. And in fact, that is our theology. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Brahma Mata Gaudiya theology is our practice as well as the perfection, both are same. That is to say, Even at the perfect stage, we will be performing bhakti yoga. Even practice stage also will be performing bhakti yoga, but it's a bhakti yoga in a practice stage. Why the bhakti, right? So, but Sukadev Goswami here presenting Ashtanga yoga in this verse, and Prabhupada is quoting 12.5. Why it is troublesome? Why it is indirect? So, from as far as the Prabhupada is concerned, our acharyas and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is concerned, it's very direct. It's only bhakti. But then one can question that why then different processes are mentioned in the Vedic literature, or even Bhagavatam, or even Bhagavad Gita. In fact, we can see these parallels. I was noting that even in this canto, ultimately Sukadeva Goswami wants to present Bhakti Yoga, right? But before presenting Bhakti Yoga, he is presenting Ashtanga Yoga. Right, exactly in Bhagavad Gita also, if you see the parallels, middle 6 chapters, we can say that they are Bhakti Yoga. So Krishna wants to present Bhakti Yoga, but what is 6th chapter? 6th chapter is Ashtanga Yoga, right? The title of the chapter is, I think, Dhyana Yoga. I don't remember right now. So, but basically Ashtanga Yoga system. So Krishna also introduces Ashtanga Yoga before Bhakti Yoga as a process. But of course, if you see the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says Sarvadharman Parityaja. He's not recommending Ashtanga Yoga as a process to be followed. In some ages, maybe that's what the process is, particularly in Satya Yoga. That was the recommended process. And people used to follow, devotees used to follow. And in fact, we have a great example of Dhruva Maharaja. He is in Satya Yoga and he follows Ashtanga Yoga. Narada Muni himself directs him to follow Ashtanga Yoga. But again, we can see here there is a tinge of bhakti in the method that Dhruva Maharaja follows. What is that? First of all, Narada Muni guides him. So Narada Muni is a devotee. So that is already there is aspects of bhakti is coming, and also Dhruva Maharaj chants the Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and he meditates on the Paramatma feature of the Lord. It's because he is an advanced yogi, he is completely detached from the matter, and his meditation was so intense on the Paramatma that the Lord himself comes in front of him, right, as a personal form, right? So, and he becomes a devotee ultimately by the mercy of the Lord and by the mercy of the Narada. And it's also mentioned there in the Bhagavatam in the 4th canto that he also worshipped the deity form while practicing all his Ashtanga Yoga practices. He's also does, I don't have reference exactly, but it comes in the few texts Prabhupada mentions. He also worships the deity form of the Lord. I don't know which deity form and all. So that way, there is a tinge of bhakti while he is practicing. So he becomes perfect in Ashtanga Yoga and he becomes a devotee immediately, right? So that way, we can conclude that yes, there are many processes mentioned. In fact, these are all authorized processes because Krishna is mentioning in Bhagavad Gita, as well as Sukadeva Goswami is mentioning about Ashtanga Yoga here. So, but these processes are not meant for us in this age right now, and obviously our theology is not based on this. So that's how that's how it is. I'm understanding is that yes, in scriptures there are many teachings, but our theology is not based on those many teachings. But our theology also has a strong foundation in the scripture. That doesn't mean we follow everything from the scripture. We follow scriptures, and we follow and Prabhupada or our acharyas certainly wherever the bhakti aspects, our theology is supported or being presented as an evidence, they highlight those verses and present it to us so that we become benefited and we take up our methods. Right? So I want to conclude now. So this particular section ends here in this text 21 of chapter 1, Ashtanga Yoga, the perfection of Ashtanga Yoga. Sukadeva Goswami is mentioning, he starts, I think, at text 15, presenting Ashtanga Yoga, and he ends here at text 21, and he says that perfection in Ashtanga Yoga is achieved only by the presence of tinge of Bhakti, Bhakti Lakshana, right? So that is the key word for today, Bhakti Lakshana. So only when Bhakti Lakshana is there, then only those yogis will become perfect. Right? So, and Prabhupada goes even further saying that even though they become perfect, they eventually want to become a devotees by the help of devotees. Right? So they will be obsessed with the personal feature eventually, and they want to become devotees. So as far as our acharyas and Prabhupada is concerned, it's very clear. Our process is Bhakti Yoga, and our practicing process is also Vaidhi Bhakti. So it's also a Bhakti Yoga, practicing Bhakti. Though in this verse, it is Sukadeva Goswami is presenting the perfection of how to reach the perfection of Ashtanga Yoga system. So I will conclude here, and if someone wants to elaborate or any further discussions, questions, we can, I think we have some time now. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Gauranga.
Hare Krishna.
Just, Prabhu, I want to appreciate your nice explanation of Ashtanga Yoga and connecting it with how there is a tinge of bhakti even in that. And also just last part of like explaining about our own process and how this our goal and end is the same, continuing bhakti even after reaching perfection. So yeah, this Ashtanga Yoga always stumps me in a sense that it's like, yes, I get it. It's part of, one of the limbs or, in the process in the yoga ladder. But you just made a very nice connection leading up to bhakti. So thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah, I read it from Bhurijana Prabhu's Unveiling the Lotus Feet, as well as Gauranga Darshan Prabhu's Bhagavad Subodhini. I was thoroughly confused with this verse because it has a very short purport, even though it's very packed. I was not able to unpack it. So I heard few lectures, and with the help of these readings, I have presented whatever I understood. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you. I remember reading this section in a reading group and we were all confused. We just read through it, but we really didn't understand it. So yeah, that's what, it was nice the way you presented it.
Mainly the portion where I got confused was Prabhupada brings pantheism here. Because even earlier verses, Sukadeva Goswami never indicates what form that one has to focus, the mind has to focus, right?
Yeah.
So, and of course, later verses, Sukadeva Goswami mentions both the universal form as well as meditating on the Paramatma feature. Both are mentioned later on. But Prabhupada brings upfront whatever is going to come up later, and he brings it here and puts as a pantheism, which is basically meditating on the universal form. So, but of course, after reading these books, it was clear.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Prabhupada is just going ahead and presenting it in these verses.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I agree with what Govinda Mataji said. It's very nicely presented. So I know we discussed this topic multiple times earlier, even while we were reading. About Ashtanga Yoga and what Dhruva Maharaj did. So, but I think, you connected these things, and then how Prabhupada brought this pantheism in here, right? In the beginning stages of Ashtanga Yoga, people worship the universal form, right? So, and then the later stages in the super soul. And also how, I was kind of keep thinking about this Dhruva Maharaj. I know Narada Muni was there, right, in his life. So that was one thing I was kind of into convinced. But the other thing, he did chant mantra, and he did even worship the deity form, right? So I think that makes it very clear there.
Yeah.
It was real. It's not just Ashtanga. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. To remind me that, I was thoroughly confused about, yes, Sukadeva Goswami is mentioning Ashtanga Yoga, but my previous understanding was Ashtanga Yoga is trying to focus on the meditating on the Paramatma feature. But here, of course, Prabhupada is bringing pantheism here, but later verses looks like it is made very clear that there are two levels in Ashtanga Yoga system also. The yogis who are attached to the matter very much, they are the ones who meditate on the universal form, whereas who are advanced in their detachment, they will focus on the Paramatma feature. So that clarity came while I was preparing for this reading.
I remember reading that, Prabhu, but I was not able to connect.
Yeah,
right? It was nice. Thank you.
Krishna Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. Vamsi Daridas Prabhu. Aglosh to Guru Prabhupada. So, this discussion was very helpful, Prabhu, in the sense there's a lot of connection in detail, as Lingaraj Prabhu and Govind Mohini Mataji was expressing. And especially 12.5 purport is really supporting. And I was actually going to ask you, what is that? And there is Bhakti involved in Ashtanga Yoga process, and the process is not easy, and Bhakti Yoga process is easy, but still, why people are going for it? I was thinking, and just hearing through the whole discussion, it looks like Prabhupada also, Krishna also mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a fear of personalism. It looks like that. I also want to ask you to comment on it. And there's fear of personalism, and Dhruva Maharaj example is pretty fitting here in this discussion, that he also has this fear of personalism in one way. Fear and anger is there, but by the mercy of Narada Muni, he got completely transformed. So that's what my thoughts are going to. So my little bit trying to get my focus is, we also have difficulties in Bhakti Yoga, which we also take shelter of impersonalism in some ways. So I want to, if you can, if you have any more thoughts on the thought, Prabhu, please share, Prabhu.
Yes. One.
Yeah.
So if I understand your question, even though bhakti is easy
Mm.
and it's available, but still not many people are so much attached or attracted.
Yeah. It's natural, easy, and then Krishna is helping, so much help is there.
Yes.
And I do find difficult in following Bhakti at times. So, yeah.
And also other process is difficult. On the other hand,
Yeah.
it needs a lot of personal qualification, but still people are attracted to that.
And there is
It
Bhakti
appears
is
at
also
least.
involved there.
Right? And,
Yeah.
yeah. In fact, I wanted to comment on that. Jnana Yoga
Let's
by itself.
mute. I think someone is unmuted.
Okay.
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 Yeah.
So I want to comment on it. My understanding is, Prabhu, to become for the Ashtanga Yoga to become perfect, Bhakti aspect is required. But if there is no Bhakti in Ashtanga Yoga, they will remain as Ashtanga Yogis. So that's my understanding. It's not by default Ashtanga Yoga has Bhakti in it, unless it's driven or guided by a Bhakta, or there are practices of Bhakti in it. That's my understanding. I may be wrong. So then coming to your question, I can only think of myself saying that even in Bhakti, how each devotee takes it, it's completely different. Like mercy is there, Krishna is there, spiritual master is there, Prabhupada books are there. But am I taking that mercy? Am I seeing that mercy, recognizing mercy, or let me figure out on my own? Even though I'm trying to practice bhakti, I have that nature that maybe because I am directly not realized what is the amount of mercy is coming to me and what is the help I'm getting. My nature is okay. Let me put hard work from my side also to learn, right? So even though there is a bhakti, so one can say, okay, I don't know anything, but I have received the best mercy, and they just fully take up with full charge, right? That's one approach. So maybe they are very simple and grateful hearts, and they can take up bhakti so easily and practice to the highest form very easily. But if one is not so grateful or not so simple, even bhakti yoga process itself, even though they are practicing bhakti, it's not so easy. It takes long time. It's very difficult, right? And I also see that as milestones. Whichever process we take, Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga, the milestones are almost pretty much same. That is detachment as one of the milestone, knowledge as another milestone, and attachment to the Lord as another milestone, right? So whichever process we go through, these are the milestones. We have to achieve this milestone. Just because I'm practicing Bhakti Yoga, that doesn't mean I don't develop detachment. So in that sense, it becomes Bhakti Yoga is also not so easy to reach those milestones. But the thing is, we have the process, we have the mercy, and we have the help. And if Ashtanga yogis have such a kind of authorized process with good help, maybe that's also fine. But who has the full Ashtanga yoga system nowadays? People only practice only a partial, either pranayama. Some people are attached to just asanas. Those are only very small aspects of pranayama. Nobody actually goes full-fledged. So I think people are more attached to those small aspects rather than the Ashtanga yoga itself, because they give immediate benefits of health, wealth, and maybe mental peace by pranayama and all. So they are attached to that. Whereas Bhakti yoga, more commitment is involved. And obviously, say some people don't like association. Maybe their nature is like that. So like that. I don't know if I answered you. I just blabbered something.
Prabhu,
Prabhu, you are on mute.
I was only having the thought that, but thank you for elaborating and clarifying, Prabhu. I was only having thought that Astanga yoga process by itself has bhakti. In a sense, Krishna has created different systems, and one of the system is also Astanga yoga, and that's what I mean. I have that. I was thinking. I was having the thought that there's inherent bhakti in all these processes, even it's so-called material processes. But I kind of understood that's not correct. I mean, for perfection, of course, for perfection is bhakti is needed. And no, even the bhakti in the sense like, it's not the devotee's mercy, right, Prabhu? For the perfection, bhakti is needed means.
If I understand, you're asking for bhakti also. To reach perfection bhakti, we need devotee's mercy. Is that the
No, for the Ashtanga yoga process, to reach perfection of Ashtanga,
Yeah.
devotee's mercy is not needed
Yeah, I don't think so.
directly.
Yeah, but the
It's a
tinge of
direct
devotion should be
involvement.
there. The tinge of
Yeah.
devotion should be there.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how it works. But because we also know that bhakti comes from only from bhakta.
Yeah.
So that is another totally. I could not really connect there. But Prabhupada makes it clear in 12.5, saying that those Ashtanga yogis or Jnana yogis who are in the perfect stage, they come in contact with devotees, then they take up bhakti. So that's the relation I could get.
Yeah.
So,
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you for the nice elaboration and discussion on this. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. You want to say something?
Hare Krishna, Vamshihari Prabhu. I was just remembering this purport, Bhagavad Gita 9.3, where Prabhupada talks about the difficulty of Bhakti Yoga. And as you were describing, I just pulled out. So, of course, Prabhupada mainly talks about the faith here. But the point that you were elaborating there, why everyone can take the process of Bhakti. So Prabhupada writes, the faithless cannot accomplish this process of devotion service. That is the purport of this verse. Faith is created by association with devotees. Unfortunate people, even after hearing all the evidence of Vedic literature from great personalities, still have no faith in God. They're hesitant and cannot stay fixed in the devotion service of the Lord. So I was thinking of your, the point that you're bringing. Devotion service is actually easy. So why can't everyone just take up this process? What makes them attracted to Ashtanga yoga or any other process? So I think this is one of the key. I mean, of course, this can be discussed in various levels for practicing devotees and for others. Prabhupada concludes this process. Those who have no faith, even after hearing about Krishna and the excellence of devotion service, who think that it is simply eulogy, find the path very difficult, even if they are supposedly engaged in devotion service. For them, there is very little hope of gaining perfection. Faith is very important in the discharge of devotion service.
Yeah, makes sense, Mataji. But I was more leaning towards personalism. Of course, in the faith is a main factor. Because in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, he even tells to Narad Muni, I agree with you, but I'm not able to follow it. And then that's where my mind is more leaning towards addressing the issue with the personalism and impersonalism before getting to the faith. I mean, That's what my mind is leaning towards, Mother. But thank you for pointing it.
Thank you very much. I think we are already past time.
Sorry.
So we will conclude here. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much.